The gospel reading this morning is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, verses 2 through 9, and I'll be reading from the English Standard Version. And after about 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and led them up to a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became radiant, intensely white, as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. And Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah." For he did not know what to say, for he was terrified. And a cloud overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." And suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone with them, but Jesus only. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus charged them to tell no one what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. Good morning. I am so honored to have been asked by the ladies of this church, the ladies in leadership, to speak with you, to share my thoughts with you this morning. As most of you know, I'm a lawyer by training and by profession, which means I can usually talk a blue streak until somebody, maybe a judge, shuts me up. But when speaking from my heart, the words don't come as easily. And I want to speak to you today from my heart about my journey. Today is Transfiguration Sunday. So that means I've spent a lot of time this week thinking about what it means to be transformed into the image of Christ. As we just read in Mark 9, Peter, James, and John got to see Jesus transfigured into something miraculously and wonderfully beautiful. Pure, white, whiter than any bleach could ever bleach here on earth. For a moment, the veil that covered their human eyes was lifted. The veil that kept Peter, James, and John from seeing Jesus in his true nature as God and man. That veil was removed, and the reality of Jesus spilled out before them. Now, in my Christian life, as I'm sure many of you have, I spent a lot of time sitting under good Christian teaching, urging me to become more like Jesus. That's supposed to be our goal. Be like Jesus. Be ye transformed. I can hear the old King James version of Romans 12:2 ringing in my mind. But how do I do that? What does that mean? Well, I still don't know, but I've thought a lot about that this week. And here are some of my thoughts I'd like to share with you. I noticed right away in the scripture, in the story of Jesus' transfiguration, the reaction of the 3 apostles. They were terrified. They didn't know what to do when confronted with the reality of Jesus. So they started talking and got busy. "Let us build 3 tents. One for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah." You know, I suddenly realized I do the exact same thing. When I'm afraid, when things are happening that I don't understand, I get busy. And oftentimes, I start talking. There's something about movement and task and goals which makes me feel like I'm in control of the situation. And if I can direct people to go along with me by running commentary coming out of my mouth, so much the better. If I can do something, anything, it will make me feel better and relieve my fears and my anxieties. I remember when I was in college, working on a tight deadline for a research paper or a project or a big test coming up, I would often go into my kitchen and start cleaning out the refrigerator. So weird, so weird. Using my valuable time to clean out the refrigerator was a very poor time management decision. But there was something about doing that task, completing it, stepping back and seeing that I had done a good job. I could control that. It made me feel better about myself. And did it help me in any way get that project done, get ready for that test, or complete that research paper? No. It was a complete waste of time. I wondered this week if that's the reaction Peter had when he saw the transfigured Christ. Did he want to start building a tent, something that he knew how to do with his hands? He had done that before. So he could be more in control of his fear. Did he want to do something that he knew how to do so he could feel better about himself? Did he need to feel like he had some control of this amazing situation that he was witnessing and was terrified of? Do we ever do that as Christians? Do we respond to things and people and situations and circumstances that make us afraid? Do we respond to that by getting busy, by taking on tasks and setting new goals, taking on new projects? And do we sometimes start talking? Do we start telling people what we think should be done so that we feel good about ourselves, like we're doing something productive, like we're in control, to relieve our fears? Now, we do this sincerely, I believe, believing in the moment that we're becoming more like Jesus, just like Peter. Peter's heart was pure. I don't have any doubt about that. Peter's energy, his brashness, his willingness to step up and step out and take risks, they were all attributes loved by our Lord. But Peter's busyness had to be directed. Somehow, Peter's busyness had to be directed by somebody besides Peter. So God essentially told Peter in no uncertain ways, take a chill pill, Peter. We don't need you right now. This is my son, the beloved. Listen to him. You aren't in charge, Peter. You can't feel better about yourself and relieve your terror by getting busy and taking on a project. And you certainly can't do it by opening your mouth and talking. So many of us in this church are blessed with so many talents. You know, I really struggle with this. How do I become more like Jesus rather than more like Francis? Eugene Peterson, the man who wrote the paraphrase, the Message that a lot of us use as to study our Bible with, Mr. Peterson said something like, God does not put us in charge of forming our own spirituality, but we do get to participate. God made us. He's our creator. We are the work of his hands. God sent his son to live, to die, and to defeat death for us. As the psalm we read this morning said, God has spoken. God continues to reveal himself in glory. God will not be silent. God calls the heavens and the earth. God gathers his consecrated followers. God declares the rightness of his cause. Our God is a powerful God, and he is in charge. Not me. I'm not in charge. My salvation is according to God's plan, not mine. You know, I actually find comfort in that when I slow down long enough to think about it and shut up long enough to think about it. God is not only an active participant in my life, but he's the leader. He is not going to fail. The victory is on God's shoulders. The victory is not up to me. You know, my husband Ron told me about his experience last weekend singing with the men's chorus. He told me how wonderful and freeing it is to sing with such a strong choir. He said it's actually much easier to sing well, being led by other strong singers. and that one can sing better than one could ever sing alone in the company of other singers. I believe that's the way it is with God. That's the key to becoming more like Jesus. Lean on the strength of God in unity with your fellow Christians. That all sounds very good. What does that mean, practically speaking? Well, I have to go back to Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that you may prove what is the will of God, and what is good and acceptable and perfect. So instead of getting busy and taking on tasks and talking a lot and trying so very hard, I've got to renew my mind. How do I do that? Another one of my favorite verses, I think, answers that question for me, and that's Philippians 4:8. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true, what is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Think about only good things. Fill my mind with beauty. Dwell on things that are honorable. Chew on thoughts that are just and pure and lovely and admirable. Do you remember the great commandment? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. How does that apply to my thoughts? Are my thoughts helping me to love God and my neighbor more? Or are they urging me to love my neighbor less? And who is my neighbor? More of God's plan. Now, I'm honest with you. It is really hard for me to dwell on good thoughts and try to put bad thoughts out of my mind when my circumstances aren't great. When I'm hurting or afraid or feel in danger, how can anyone possibly control their thoughts? Well, again, I don't think I can, and maybe you can't either. I got some insights into my problem, though, from another one of those great and most read modern theologians. Facebook. Hashtag daily dose of humility. Hashtag just be nice. The Facebook devotional asked me to pretend I was holding a cup of hot coffee. You are holding a cup of hot coffee when someone comes along and bumps into you, making you spill your coffee everywhere. Why did you spill the coffee? You spilled coffee because there was coffee in your cup. Had there been tea in your cup, you would have spilled tea. The point is, whatever is inside the cup will spill out. Therefore, when life comes along and shakes you, which will happen, whatever is inside of you will come out. So we have to ask ourselves, what's in our cups? When life gets tough, what spills out? Joy, gratefulness, peace, humility? Or does anger and bitterness, harsh words, and reactions come out? We get to choose. Today, let's work toward filling our cups with gratitude, forgiveness, joy, words of affirmation, kindness, gentleness, and love for others. Now that Facebook advice sounded a whole lot to me like Philippians 4:8. So the trick must be for me to fill up my cup ahead of time with good thoughts before I get my cup smacked out of my hand, to renew my mind before I have to walk through the black times. I asked Dr. Opsada to share with me any thoughts he had about Transfiguration Sunday. Dr. O and Meredith are two of those strong singers in the chorus of our church that make it easier for me to sing along in a way that I could not sing if I were trying to sing alone. Dr. O said that sometimes we miss the true specialness of our experiences and the things happening around us until we take the time to reflect and digest them. Digest them through the eyes of faith. Dr. O said it was only after Jesus died and was resurrected that Peter, James, and John were able to interpret the transfiguration of Jesus with power. Maybe even our bad times viewed through the eyes of faith reveal the power and majesty of God. You know, Ron and I visited the Kennedy Space Center recently. Now, when I look up into the night sky, when it's clear and cold outside like it has been, I see twinkling stars. But I also see lots and lots and lots of black darkness. That's all my eyes can see, a few little stars and lots of darkness. But when the Hubble Space Telescope looks at that same blackness, pictures of breathtaking beauty emerge, indescribable, colors and lights and forms, the artwork of God the Creator, the Master Painter. The veil of my blindness is lifted, and I can see beauty in what was hidden in that darkness. I think that's how we're transformed into the likeness of Christ. We participate by training ourselves to search for beauty and worth. We intentionally ponder on things that are honorable, like the Scriptures. We try to think on those things which are pure, bright, and admirable. Not in a naive, Pollyannish way, but with intention. We try to see the best in our neighbors by looking at them and with them through the eyes of faith, choosing to see the good even when our own eyes are blinded by darkness. So let's participate with God as He prepares us, as we are the work of His hands to become more like Jesus. God will prepare our thoughts, and like He did Peter, He will direct our busyness. We lean on each other in this church and become more like Christ together, more than we could ever become by ourselves. And that's God's plan, not mine. Amen. If this place, this chorus of people leaning on each other and on God, is a church where you would like to join us and lean in to become more like Jesus with us, please come forward so we can welcome you to the heart of God as we stand and sing hymn number 344, I Have Decided to Follow Jesus.